Welcome back. Today we join a dedicated mechanic. As he takes on a machine most would consider a total loss. This heavily damaged Honda Civic Type R requires a complete structural and mechanical revival. The first step is simply getting the fractured chassis safely into the workspace. Once inside, the real assessment begins. Removing the plastic underbody shielding is essential to reveal the true extent of the collision damage. Modern impact structures are designed to deform, absorbing kinetic energy before it reaches the cabin. This means the superficial damage up top usually hides bent subframes and twisted mounting points below. He strips away the shattered front bumper and begins clearing the engine bay perimeter. Disconnecting the wiring harness and removing the fuse box isolates the electrical system. This prevents accidental shorts and provides clearance to extract the drivetrain safely. The suspension must be detached before the core mechanics can be separated from the chassis. Loosening the strut tower bolts relieves the tension on the front steering knuckles. Working with an assistant, he supports the heavy engine block with a hydraulic jack. The lower control arms are unbolted, freeing the final anchor points holding the front drivetrain in place. Precision is critical here. A sudden drop could crack the aluminum engine casing or sever trapped hydraulic lines. With the damaged shell stripped, the focus shifts to preparing replacement panels. Bare metal and raw primer must be entirely free of manufacturing oils before any paint is applied. A dedicated solvent wash removes invisible contaminants, ensuring the subsequent layers will bond flawlessly to the surface. Inside the paint booth, masking paper is staged to protect adjoining surfaces from overspray. Fresh body panels often arrive with an E-coat, a protective factory layer that prevents rust during shipping. Before any color can be sprayed, this surface requires thorough degreasing and scuffing. He wipes the new fender down with specialized tack cloths. This static-free material pulls micro-dust from the clear coat's path, creating an entirely sterile canvas. A pneumatic orbital sander handles the broad curves, leveling the factory finish. The vacuum attachment captures the abrasive dust, keeping the booth environment clean. However, complex edges and sharp body lines require a manual sanding block. Hand sanding ensures the abrasive pressure remains even, preventing the tool from biting into the fragile corners. Automotive primer is a two-part chemical system. The thick base must be thoroughly agitated to suspend the heavy solid particles before the hardener is introduced. Once mixed, the chemical curing process begins immediately, giving the craftsman a strict window of time. Hours later, the same rigorous sanding process is applied to the replacement hood, establishing a uniform mechanical grip for the fresh paint. Back in the main bay, the compromised structural metal must be excised. Using a pneumatic spot weld cutter, he drills out the factory fusions without destroying the underlying base metal. This allows the bent brackets to be cleanly separated from the healthy chassis rails. Restoring the vehicle's geometry dictates that every new structural tie is anchored exactly to original tolerances. A millimeter of misalignment here would cascade into severe handling issues on the road. The foundation of the rebuild takes shape as the heavy front subframe is maneuvered into position. This thick steel cradle serves as the primary mounting point for the engine and lower suspension geometry. By bolting a rigid support bar across the front spans, he locks the frame rails into perfect alignment. This restored rigidity is what will give the Type R its signature razor-sharp steering response. The steering rack is secured to the lower chassis with high-tensile salt bolts, torqued to withstand constant vibration. With the lower framework stabilized, the heavy lifting begins. Heavy-gauge chains are bolted directly to the block's cast mounting points. The hoist takes the immense weight of the engine assembly, allowing it to be carefully extracted without dragging against the freshly prepared bay. Suspended away from the car, the entire drivetrain is easily accessible. Resting the engine securely on the floor gives the mechanic room to inspect the timing covers. Servicing these vital components now saves hours of frustrating labor down the line. As reassembly accelerates, fresh coolant lines are routed along the block. Rubber degrades under constant heat cycling, so replacing these hoses is a necessary safeguard against future leaks. The engine is finally seated in its restored cradle. Routing the primary wiring harness requires patience. Every connector must be shielded from fake exhaust heat and moving belts. The structural brackets are bolted flush against the chassis, locking the front end together. This careful layering of mechanics and structural steel transforms an empty shell back into a highly tuned machine. Proper lubrication is the lifeblood of a rebuilt block. High-grade synthetic oil is poured in, coating the internal bearings and valve train before the first ignition. A dry start on a high-compression engine can cause catastrophic scoring on the cylinder walls. Beneath the car, exhaust flanges are aligned and firmly tightened. Sealing the exhaust system ensures proper back pressure for the turbocharger and prevents dangerous gases from escaping. The collision shattered the structural integrity of the front glass. A modern windshield is not just a wind deflector. It is a vital load-bearing component of the roof. Cutting through the hardened urethane adhesive requires a high-tensile wire pulled slowly along the perimeter. Power tools clear away the stubborn remaining glue from the pinch weld. The channel must be scraped entirely bare to guarantee the fresh urethane bonds flawlessly. The forced induction system is sealed by clamping thick silicone hoses to the front-mounted intercooler. Any boost leak here would drastically rob the engine of power. Bleeding the massive front brake calipers is next. A clear tube allows the mechanic to monitor the fluid as it flushes out trapped air bubbles. Compressible air in a hydraulic system leads to a spongy pedal, which is entirely unacceptable in a performance car. Fresh fluid is drawn through the master cylinder, restoring absolute stopping power. A high-capacity aluminum radiator is dropped into the core support to manage the intense heat of the rebuilt engine. The freshly painted fenders are carefully bolted to the frame, checked repeatedly to ensure even panel gaps. It is a slow, methodical alignment process. Finally, the heavy hood is lowered into place. The painted surfaces align seamlessly, hiding the massive structural and mechanical reconstruction resting just beneath. With the car back on the ground, the plastic wheel liners are pinned into the arches. These shields protect the delicate engine pulleys from standing water and road debris. The lug nuts are torqued down, and the exterior receives a final wipe down. Inside the cabin, the final scars of the collision are erased. The steering wheel and its deployed airbag module must be entirely swapped. Disconnecting the delicate clock spring wiring is done carefully to preserve the steering angle sensors. A pristine, red-stitched wheel is aligned onto the splined steering shaft and bolted down. Once the final interior trim is snapped into place, the primary battery terminals are reconnected. A thorough vacuuming pulls glass, dust, and debris from the carpets, finishing the interior restoration. The mechanic slots the tactile manual shifter into gear, and the engine fires up cleanly. What was a fractured, scrap-bound wreck just weeks ago is a working machine again, revived, realigned, and ready for the road. Every hidden weld, torqued bolt, and perfectly routed wire operates as one cohesive system. Survival is more than just endurance. It is a meticulous return to form.